indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'm just going to make note that Irene Novoshian is not present tonight, and she won't be. She's far away from us on vacation. So, and do we don't have any, I'm not going to go over the Zoom rules then, unless we get anybody. Jill, let me know. So if anybody present would like to address the board during our public forum section of the agenda, you can do so by signing up over here. And if that's the case, you would have 3 minutes to just speak to the board. So go ahead and do that at your convenience. Visitor guest book, again, if you want to acknowledge your presence, you're welcome to sign the guest book. And announcements. I don't have any announcements. Anybody have announcements? And presentations, we're cruising. No presentations, right? All right. So I would build a motion to approve the agenda as it's presented.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Consent items. Does anybody on the board have a reason to remove anything from our consent agenda this evening? Okay, I would build a motion to approve the consent items as presented.
I move that we approve the consent items as presented.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, passes unanimously. Reports. So first on our reports agenda, and I also want to let people in the audience know that agenda 6 is where we're at, and agenda 7 is where we do the public forum. So if you want to address us, you would sign up. And have any guests joined us in the, okay, asked about the remote room. So licensed and classified representative reports. Anybody present for that? No. Moving forward, administrator reports. We have Erica Gordon.
Hey guys. Hello, happy summer. So I have a two-parter in there. You should have something that was slipped into your packets today. This is the time of year where I give you the annual update on the English Learner Report, which is the state level report. That is actually at the bottom part of your report. I've given you a summary, but it is also, thanks to Jill, it is also linked on our website. So if you don't want to go fumbling through the ODE webpage, you will see it linked there. I put a few highlights there, and it's hopefully organized a little bit nicely for you. What is an English learner? We have different classifications of English learners, which I think can get a little bit confusing, right? So what is a current, which sometimes we refer to as an in-program EL, what is a former, an ever, and a never. Those different classifications actually drive the funding and how we get different ADM, ADMW. So our students who are current ELs or in-program ELs get us that additional 0.5 ADMW for purposes of our group here tonight. Again, this is looking at the overview of the state. If you look at the bottom bullet there, the distribution of current ELs across Oregon, the highest percentage of ELs was in Woodburn, just next door at 36.2% of their population. But if you also look across the state, nearly half of Oregon districts had no ELs. So we actually are in the half of the state that not only has them, but we actually have a pretty good percentage of our population that serves ELs, which I found pretty interesting. Other key features from the report that I pulled out that I felt really also aligned to who we serve. Majority of ELs are in elementary grades, while the majority of their former ELs, those are students who have exited the program, were in high school. Spanish was a predominant home language. And while across Oregon, 7.2% of never ELs participated in TAG, the figure was only 5.6% for former ELs and just 0.3% for current ELs. And I know that for historical purposes, Sherry can attest to that's been something that the board has been interested in for quite some time, and something that we have been at least in discussion and working on as a part of our process here. When we look at how students are exit to the program, we look at if they're on track to English proficiency within 7 years. That was part of our identification process for House Bill 3499. We did not have enough students exit within a timely manner. It does not look like we are the only district who is struggling with that. Same thing, attendance across the state. The state is also seeing that overall current EL, so students who are in program, their regular attendance rates are substantially lower across all grades. The structure of the report I put in there just so if there's something that really piques your interest, you would know where to go. It looks like this. It's not as long as it's been in past years, but it is pretty dense. Overall, though, our district is certainly seeing some of the same patterns, just maybe to a more, just to a higher degree. Hence the House Bill 3499 designation. Any questions about the overall legislative report?
I have a
Yes.
question. I apologize if I missed it, or if you don't have the answer for me right now, that's okay.
Okay.
But it says that Woodburn United 36.2%. What percentage are we at?
So it changes from year to year, and I can get, we usually have around, it's been lowering every year. We have about 200 kids overall. So out of our 655, that includes all 4 of those designations. I can get you the number of our in programs.
A little less than a third. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned that we were kind of low at the percentage of exiting ELs.
Yeah.
What percentage? did that
That's
look
in my
for?
title, it's in my Title III budget, and I can email that to you
Okay,
as well,
yeah, no worries.
because I have to report that every year too.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So one of the things that Superintendent Stuckey asked each of us to do was to report to you guys what our focus is this year. Of course, knowing me, I needed to organize my thoughts. They'll be able to just stand up and tell you. Mark's got a smirk on his face because y'all know me very well. So I won't read those for you. Overall, though, I think it's really just looking at professional learning in each of these areas for a variety of reasons. One, in counseling, we have new people. We need to onboard our new staff. At the other end, special education, we have people who've been here for a long time. They need professional learning in a different way as well. And so I think if I could summarize what I'm hoping to focus on this year would be professional learning. So I will leave it at that.
Any questions or comments for Erica?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
The rest of our administrators do have reports. They're just not written in the packet.
Okay. All right, who's first?
May I introduce Mr. Jeff Taylor?
Should we start with
middle
school? They were so quick to the point. And you guys you volunteered very well. That was well.
I'd like to thank my colleagues.
It's a pleasure to introduce Jeff Taylor, who is our new middle school principal. We're very lucky to have you here. And this is the way that you get to start. It's with the report.
Yeah, and Jeff, you're welcome to sit if you're more comfortable. Whatever.
Thank you. I feel incredibly lucky to be here. Quiero empezar de decir buenas noches, dobry večer, and thank you for having me this evening. I really do appreciate it. I'm glad that Irene isn't here tonight so that she could correct my Russian there, but I worked on it. Probably say it sounds a little more like this than that. So Irene and I worked together as principals, elementary principals in Woodburn prior to this. So I've known Irene for a few years. What I've been working on the last couple of weeks is getting the building ready. That means I want, and I mentioned this earlier, I want to create a moment when teachers come into their rooms and just go, it's ready and I'm ready. In addition to that, we've been working on the master schedule, the supplementary schedules that go into that master schedule, who's supervising lunch, these types of things, as well as looking at Abbott, looking at PBIS, and then looking at RTI. And what I'm most excited about this year is to build a system that answers the question, what do we do when a student doesn't get it the first time? In a systematic way, so that we can quickly identify them, get them the additional support that they need, so that they're back on this track of learning. So that's what I'm most excited about this year.
Well, welcome. Does anybody
Thank
have
you.
questions or comments for Mr. Taylor?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And who's next?
Oh, well, you guys volunteer.
She always has to go first.
I know. we need to think that. Welcome, 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 welcome. I'm excited to be here as well. One of the small wins for me, I was just telling this to Jasmine, is recognizing that long pants still fit after a month of not wearing them. So that and shoes and socks, I'm like, wow, this is a good thing after a vacation and everything. Honestly, I would echo exactly what Jeff said about what I'm excited about at the high school as well. Working on master schedule, which is a long and drawn out process. It's made a little bit more complicated this year with we having 14 of our students go to a Willamette Career Academy, which is exciting. It's really, really exciting. It's a great opportunity for those students. But it also poses quite a challenge of, you know, trying to match schedules and classes for kids that they want to take. So that's been a tough part. In fact, I just got off the phone a little bit ago with Aaron Hyde down at LBL. I'm hitting my head against the wall with this master schedule now. I need another set of eyes to take a look at this. So we were doing that and have a good time with that. Also, those supplementary schedules that go within that as well. I think what I'm, along with what Jeff said with PBIS, which oftentimes people don't associate with high schools, they associate it more with elementary and middle. We're going to be going full
Can
force
you
in
spell that out?
PBIS,
Yeah.
Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports.
Thank you.
You're welcome. A world of acronyms, right? That's what education is. So thank you for asking that. But it's the idea of explicitly teaching what our expectations are to our kids so they know it, just like we explicitly teach academic expectations. It's the same thing with behavior. So, which is what I'm excited about. RTI, gosh, we've been talking about this now for a year, and diving into this with both feet is super exciting because, as Jeff had said, and we've talked about this in the past, it's identifying those struggling kids early on and provide those supports so we can get them back to being where they need to be. No longer are we, or should we be, a staff of educators that say, I taught it, they didn't learn it. That's on them. It should be, I taught it, we didn't learn it. What am I going to do next? That's on us. So I'm super, super excited about that. And then just getting the school year started. You know, we've got registration next Wednesday, Thursday. That's kind of the exciting part of kids get their schedules. They get to talk with me right now of I got to take this class or I got to take this class. And we're still working on some counselor stuff for the high school, which is great. I appreciate the work that Eric has been doing alongside with me with that. So we're raring to go. It's an exciting time. It's always fun to come back for break and get ready to go. And I'm excited to get my teachers back in a couple of weeks. It'll be fun.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Peterson?
Thank you. Your turn.
Beth for last.
Thank my colleagues for going first. Hello. So, you know, I could echo many of the similar pieces, but today we had our first day of kinder camp, which is our first year of trying this out, the structure. So we invited all the incoming kindergartners in this week to attend 2 days, just to get to know the school a little bit, become familiar with the lunch process, the recess process. It's a little artificial because usually our hallways are not quite this much like a storage room, but they had a great time. It was so much fun going in and just sitting with them and trying to help, you know, turn the paper as we use the scissors and, you know, things like that. So that was wonderful. Let's see, other things that I'm excited about. We are partnering with the YMCA to be able to offer after-school childcare this year, which is
fabulous. So we're still working on some details there, but that's a huge win for our families. We have many families who need that care. for
Is that
kids.
in the old gym again?
It will need to be on site here in the building.
okay.
Yeah, we were able to use the old gym, sort of in that emergency COVID licensure time. We're not able to do that now. So we'll work on that and hopefully get that all set up to begin at the beginning of the year. So that's an exciting thing. Gosh, other than that, teachers are kind of breaking down the doors to come in and like start setting up their classrooms, that kind of thing. But they're just so happy to be kind of going back to what we might call normal, setting up their, big rugs and groups of students and learning tables and things like that we just haven't had in the past couple of years. So a lot of excitement around just really getting back into what we know is best practice for kids. So along with all the other things they said, those are things that I'm really excited about.
Any questions or comments?
Yes.
Of course, I have a question, right? First year with the little Jumpstart Kinder,
Yes.
what percentage would you say of kids that have already been registered actually are taking this opportunity to come in?
So I can't give you that exact percentage because I don't have an office manager right now. But I do know of the about 40 students on our list, we have about 20 of them who are going to be coming in. So about half,
That's really good turnout.
which is pretty good.
Yeah.
For just 2 days.
Yeah.
During the week in the summer. So, yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
All right. Thank you so much.
Moving on to the budget report.
Okay. So first, I have, the food service fund. And the way that this report is, and maybe you guys will have, we can talk about how we want to do this going forward. I just kind of continued what Gail's been doing. She has all of summer kind of lumped in together. And so it's, and the projections are what basically happened last year. It's kind of hard to project really what's going to happen at this point. So if you guys want to see this report differently, that's something we can talk about. But anyways, for the period one, so this is summer, this will be July and August. So far, we've only revenue we've gotten is $989 in federal reimbursement. And then our beginning fund balance right now, we estimated it at $36,570. We did get a good size amount of revenue. It just came in August. You guys will see that next month. For expenditures, there is not much that we spent this month. As you can see, it's just our dues and fees, and then just our normal rental and some food costs. All of the summer school stuff is run through our summer school account, so that's why you don't see that here. So right now, our month end fund balance is $33,449. And this is going to be an interesting report to see how it works. This will be the first year that I've been here where we have kids paying for lunches. Prior to this, it was all obviously paid by government. And so it'll be interesting to see how that looks for this year. Any questions on this?
When are we going to communicate that to parents?
Actually,
It's going back to the way it was before COVID.
yeah, so Mrs. Stuckey reached out to Stacy today actually to discuss what the plan is. I know for sure it's going to be at registration, but we are meeting on Monday to discuss like a full communication plan, because you're right, we need to get everybody to sign up for it, because it's more than just the food program. It affects Title I and other revenue sources. So definitely it's being communicated, but we want to come up with like a more solid plan, maybe some incentives. She talked about for kids that bring back their papers, things like that. So we meet on Monday to talk about that in more detail. Good question. That's going to be a really big deal. The other thing that Stacy's working on too is they have a breakfast program that we can help provide free breakfast for families. So she's looking into that too. So she's looking at all different avenues of how we can still support families best that we can with the options that are available to us. So This is the general fund. As you can see, the majority of the income came in from the state school fund. They front load us on the state school fund and give us the first 2 months in July. So you can see that's the 1.1 million there. And then that 631,801, that is based on what we are projecting to get for the state school fund. That's what our remaining income will be for the rest of the year. We also received some rental income. I don't know if you saw the big buses that came in. We rented out the elementary school for the big band group, and they actually were here more than normal. So that was a good amount of money that we got for that. And then our interest on investments are going up, which is super exciting because interest rates are going up. So it'll be nice to see that number start creeping back up this year. And then we have our common school fund deposit, which we get twice a year. And you can see what our estimated fund balance down here at the bottom is the 518,264. So for expenditures, we have just a small salary. This is just the 12-month employees. Some benefits, and then our beginning of the year things like our insurance. That's usually our biggest chunk. We pay our liability insurance and then our workers' comp insurance in the first month of the school year. So currently our month-end fund balance looks very healthy because we got that big chunk of state school fund. But our projected month-end fund balance right now is 427,000. So any questions on this one? Right. How do I stop?
Right. Moving on to superintendent report. Right way, let me find it.
Well, good evening, directors. Tonight I will be talking about 3 things. If it will let me move the slide. There we go. I want to share an update about secondary math. Also talk about a new practice for us, which is continuous school improvement plans at all 3 schools, and provide an update on equity, diversity, and inclusion. So first, what I want to share is our very preliminary spring test scores from Smarter Balanced Assessment for the state. These are preliminary because the office, ODE, the Department of Education, will be sifting and sorting this a little bit, tossing out some scores for students that may have not been with us for a full year. So they're tightening that up right now. Will it change very much? No, not very much at all. So this is actually probably very close to where we're going to end up when the final report comes out in October. As you can see, a lot to worry about, just as we have discussed in our previous board meetings. However, not to support this, but the whole state is not doing well at all. And it requires a very aggressive response to that. And that is what we're going to be doing in the Mount Angel School District. So for MAMS, the state is at 28% meeting exceeding. So is MAMS for grade 6, grade 7, 30%, and 30% grade 8, 26% MAMS, just a smidgen under that at 25%. And at grade 11, we have performed above the state. So again, nothing to celebrate per se, because the scores are very, very low, but yet we have trended upward over the state average. So things to consider as we look at where we need to head. As far as our secondary mathematics programs, we do need to have an aggressive response. We need to and will be revising our professional learning community procedures that include increased data collection. And what that will look like are forms that our principals look at every week, and every 3 weeks, usually every 3 weeks will include targeted math data. So that will be looked at every 3 weeks. We have offered additional math training for secondary math standards to staff at the secondary level. We have offered and will continue to offer additional coursework for secondary math teachers. And we're providing additional training on response to intervention systems at the building level as well. So those things will all start right away. In terms of our secondary math programs, same structure as has been in place, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math and grade 8 accelerated math will be offered at the middle school. And at JFK, Algebra 1 and 2, Geometry, Pre-Calculus, AP Calculus, and Financial Algebra. So nothing shifts there. Where we do have a shift this year, our math programming at MAMS. Grade 7 math is going to be taught by 3 staff members rather than 1 staff member. And the benefits to that really outweigh any concerns that people might be bringing up. The benefits are that we have much greater instructional flexibility, an ability for each teacher to compare their data and to move students further faster, depending on what's a better fit for them. So that is a huge benefit. And I would go on to say here that of all of the professional learning communities in the district, this is probably going to be the most powerful one in the entire district, because there will be 3 teachers teaching the same thing and comparing data, which is pretty outstanding. As far as grade 8 accelerated math, that's going to be taught by one of our high school staff members. And the benefit to that is that we'll have what we call strong articulation, so that the middle school standards and the high school math standards, there'll be good discussion going on there and no surprises. So a smoother transition between the high school and the middle school for when our 8th graders enter as freshmen. Any questions on these slides before I move on?
The first slide, including increased data, what data will we be collecting? On those.
Let me see if I can go back just to make sure I'm looking at it as well. Sorry.
Aggressive response.
Aggressive response. So the targeted review of math data, this will be common formative assessments that teachers agree on, and looking at feedback to students on a regular basis. And the feedback forms or the PLC forms will go to the principals, who will be seeing where are the kids at, how's it going, what's the percentage looking like, what's the response when kids aren't making it, all those things. Does that answer it for you? Okay.
And then on one more question. Secondary math, the last slide.
Okay.
Bullet 2.
Oops.
The grade 8 accelerated math and the high school math, are they still going to use the same curriculum now?
For now, yes,
Are they going to switch to teacher ed?
I'm working on it. It's a $1 million question.
Do you know how many kids are in that accelerated math?
I do not,
Just curious.
don't. And I don't know that Mr. Taylor probably knows either, as the new kid on the block. Oh, but Erica Gordon has that?
It's. And. Yeah.
You guys want to move on?
Okay,
That feel okay?
yeah, we'll come back.
It's just curiosity.
Any other math questions?
Not really a math question, but just kind of like this is how I understand it. Every 3 weeks, right, you assess where those kids are at. Because you have your tier 1, right? And then at the end of the 3 weeks, that's when your tier 2 come in on what kids are having trouble understanding the concept. And that's where your interventions come in play. And that's why you're going every 3 weeks.
Well, every 3 weeks is pretty average for a PLC, because a PLC goes through an entire cycle, and part of that is giving the assessment and looking at data. That usually hits about every 3 weeks, that you're analyzing another piece of data to look at. Some teams go a little bit faster, some go a little bit slower, but 3 weeks is pretty common. At least that's been my experience. Mrs. Gordon, you still looking over there?
Yeah, I need.
Okay,
So those interventions update every 3 weeks then, or so?
or
The
so.
tier
I-
twos and tier threes.
that it's going to be more effective the shorter and more fluid that the interventions are. The last thing we want to do is try and load up intervention time with a bunch of different concerns that we have about kids. It should be just 1 or 2 small things.
So does the staff have enough PLC time to do that?
They do, as long as we don't have other meetings taking place during Wednesday mornings, and we will not. It will be PLC only.
Any other questions?
Great questions. All right. And I'm going to move on to something I'm very excited about. It's rigorous. Each school will be establishing their own SIPs. That's an acronym for continuous improvement plans. This will be a 2-year cycle. Okay.
How many? So 9 students in accelerated 8th grade math. Thank you.
Thanks for looking that up. A 2-year cycle, and that's intentional because we don't want to keep moving the target every
I
year.
will say we're also doing some retesting of students who participated in Bridge and so forth, so that number could go up. So I'm
Okay,
sorry.
cool.
Moving on.
Thank you. The data, we're going to use data to guide goal setting. Quarterly progress monitoring will take place. Quarterly report to the board of directors will take place, and these plans will be accessible to the public. Those are the major aspects to it, but I want to make sure you look at the components tonight to know what the specifics are. There are 10 important components. One is a school profile, because everyone in the community has a right to know what a school is all about. What does ODE say about on the report card about a school? So that's a very basic but important and accessible part. It's also important not just to be able to look at mission, vision, values, and goals, but do the staff know what the mission, vision, values, and goals are? What do they believe in? Where are they trying to head? That needs to be established. Hopefully not at the same pace as our strategic plan went though, because that was about 8 months. We won't be doing that. Academic performance and climate data will be looked at. What data is it that we need to analyze? 2 areas of focus, 1 academic and 1 climate, really taking a deeper look at what stands out for improvement when you look at all of this data. And data can be anything from surveys to state test results, to formative assessments, to student questionnaires, all kinds of data. We want more data is better. 1 data point never gives the whole picture. An analysis of the current practices or the current reality. What is it that's working and what is it that is not working? And let's have a deep discussion about that as staff. Continue. This is my favorite part. Theory of action is a fancy way of saying root cause analysis to really get at why is this happening? And if we did things differently, what would the predicted outcome be? SMART goals, another acronym, short, measurable, attainable, time bound, and I'm forgetting the R, relevant, sorry. What are the specific outcomes that we're trying to measure here? The implementation plan. What is it that we're going to do? How are we going to do it? Who's going to be responsible for it? How much is it going to cost? What does the budget look like? When is it going to happen? Progress monitoring 4 times a year. Is our plan having the intended impact? And a final report, did we reach our goals? So those are the components that are going to be involved in the SIPs or the continuous improvement plans. We do have some next steps. and I want to make you aware of. The principals of the teams are going to go, and their teams that they choose in their buildings are going to go through the SIP process this fall, and it takes time. With that in mind, the SIPs need to be completed by the end of October. It's a lot of work to do all of these steps. The school board will have the opportunity to learn about each school's SIP. And a school board work session is recommended so that all of you become familiar with what the template looks like and what the SIP components look like when it's all put together. Yes.
Just for maybe people that are watching on Zoom, when it goes back to the area of focus of these plans, one academic and one climate. Sorry to put you on the spot, but could you
That's fine.
throw out like an example of what a climate would like a climate focus would be for?
Sure. The data that might get pulled might be office referrals on bullying and harassment, or it could be breaking it down by ethnic groups, Hispanic, white, Pacific Islander, Asian American. Could be, I want them to pull as much data as possible. So it could be all of those things.
Thank you.
More is better. Thanks for asking. Other questions?
It's a big project.
It is a big project. It's a lot.
Did you say it was a 2-year plan?
A 2-year plan.
Yeah.
So next spring, they'll look at things again and see what needs to be tweaked, but they won't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak.
So, sorry, the CIPs will be complete by October. So does that plan include what data points you'll be gathering, or is that just more of an overview?
Do you mean data points in terms of SMART goals? And yes, that the first SMART goals will be established by then, but they will not have the first report. Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the final section of the report tonight, which is around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think it's really important to take a look at this image and what's happening on the left and what's happening on the right, because equality and equity are two very, very different things, as this image portrays. On the left, you see 3 individuals who are trying to reach apples, and they've all been given an equal-sized box. So it's equality, but they're all not able to access or to be successful at the activity. Whereas on the right, they have what they need so that everyone is successful. Equality doesn't mean equity. And so tonight's work is really looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what we can do as a school district, as a community, as a staff, as leaders to ensure equity for all of our students. There's a lot of relevance to this topic tonight. One is that just a handful of months ago, the board readopted policy JBB, adding to that the superintendent would work on an action plan. So I wanted to make sure that we revisit that policy tonight, but also our historical achievement data shows huge gaps, and they're historical. They've happened for years and years and years. And we have also been listening very carefully to voices of students and parents and their experiences, and those are indicating that we need to change our practices. I'd like to take a look at school board policy JBB and a couple of things that I pulled out here. The district is committed to the success of every student in each of our schools. For that success to occur, the district is committed to equity by recognizing institutional barriers. And clearly we must have some, or we wouldn't be having the kinds of results that I'm about to share with you. The second piece to this first paragraph, achieving educational equity means students' identities will not predict or predetermine their success in school. And yet when we look at the data that I'm about to share with you, it does appear that that is the case. So things to think about tonight. Educational equity is based on the principles of fairness and justice in allocating resources, opportunity, treatment, and creating success for each student. So with that, I'm going to share some information that is not easy. This is of serious concern. You'll see here that grades 3 through 5 are clumped together. These are the state test scores beginning in 2012. For those first 5 years of reporting, grades 3 through 5 were clumped together. It wasn't until years later that they realized or identified that grade 3 reading was the milestone to measure. But if you look at this, there's nothing to explain here in terms of there being a huge disparity. We need to get at the why, and that's what those continuous improvement plans are all about. So this is for reading, the percent of students who are meeting and exceeding. The next slide, in those years, they narrowed it down to grade 3 reading. And even though it's now grade 3, the results are fairly similar. We have between a 30 and 50+% percentage differentiation between our Hispanic Latino students and our white students. So that's reading. We have math. Similar situation in terms of grouping grade levels together. Grades 6 through 8 were reported as one group from 2012 to 2017. Again, you'll see the disparities all the way across. 30, sometimes 40% percentage difference. And then in 2017, the milestone target of grade 8 math was used by the state of Oregon. And again, disparity. The next slide are our graduation rates, and it's a roller coaster. There's some interesting years there where it's flipped. But that's nothing to celebrate, because at high school, we want all kids to graduate at 100%. So plenty to work on there, and no surprise. This is a lot.
Rachel, what's the red for?
Oh, just to help you see visually how close or be able to, oh, that one there is an error. I apologize for that. It shifted when I, it should be up higher up there. My apologies. This is a lot, and I could continue, or you could ask questions right now if you have some just based on this data. Okay.
No, I would just comment that having been on this board for quite a while, this is these are known data points that we've known about, and it's been our intention to close the gap year after year, and we haven't been successful. And so I commend you for coming at it with a specific plan of the CIPs and hoping, well, planning that the intended outcome is to diminish that gap over time. So yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And I think in addition to that too, just to see overall in both groups that our test scores have decreased from 2012 to where we're at now too, which is an additional concern.
And actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Director Fowl, because if you go back, 2014-15 is when Smarter Balance was implemented. And it didn't even matter that the test format had changed, or the questions had changed, or that it was at the national level with national standards and state standards. Even with a change in the test or the exam, it's still, the disparity is still there. So that's the first part of this piece of the presentation. This also requires aggressive response, because I think we all know that this is not acceptable and that our children deserve better. So some things that have been happening in the last handful of months is that Erica Gordon and I have been meeting with parents and students, and that began last spring. And we did planning in early summer for a parent focus group that just took place several weeks ago. Parent focus group didn't happen, and we're working with Dr. Maria Chambers, who's the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Coordinator for Willamette Educational Service District, and that will be ongoing. She will continue to work with us and be a bridge between what needs to happen in our district, but also what our parents need and the voices that they need to share and need to listen to.
Have a good turnout of parents in the focus group.
It was meant to be more intimate and small,
Okay.
so it was not as large as I would have thought, but what we got as an outcome was excellent. And actually, I'm about to share that, and what mirrored it, the results of the small parent focus group mirrored what we had heard in the spring from both parents and from students. So I think we have some trends, just because there was so much consistency. This is what we heard. Racism exists in our schools. We have implicit bias, which is not meant to be hurtful. It's unintended, but it still is hurtful. And that might be someone going up to someone who may be Asian American and just assuming they're not from the United States and saying, where are you from? There's no malintent in that question, and yet for the recipient, that may be offensive. And there's explicit, and this was something that has happened here in Mount Angel. It happened last year, another student making slanted eyes at a student who happened to be Asian, and that was explicit, and it was wounding. There's definitely conflict between students. Students are perceiving that staff don't consistently respond when incidents are reported. And I would further clarify that statement by saying, when it's happening in the moment in the classroom and teachers are teaching and there's good intent to get back to it later and it may not happen, or it may not, it's not perceived to happen. Does that make sense? Okay. Parents are perceiving a lack of follow-through or consequences by administration when incidents occur. There's a frustrating lack of alignment between when parents are available, which is usually in the evening, and when teachers are available. So conferences might be the only time that can happen. And students and families need more information and resources for academics and mental health supports that are actually available in our own school system. We can do a better job of letting them know what is available. Some solutions were offered. Perhaps increasing the district's focus on equity. Increasing the hiring of staff who accurately represent students, families, and the community. Increasing communication between teachers and parents. Providing more information to parents about the resources that are available in our schools. Removing teacher opinion from instruction. Really listening to our students and hearing their stories. And establishing a committee to develop a district equity plan. So those were some of the offerings. And we have some next steps that are already in the works. I will be leading a parent focus group response session. The focus group that happened several weeks ago was a listening session for me and for Erica Gordon. That was our role. Now we need to respond back with what we are doing to address those concerns that were expressed. We have an equity, diversity, and inclusion committee that's being formed with a parent representative, a student representative, administration, and hopefully a teacher. But they haven't reported back yet, so we're not bothering anyone yet about that opportunity, giving them their space for the summer. We're going to continue to partner with Dr. Chavez. Our strategic plan and our continuous improvement plan goals are going to be measured, and equity is going to be woven in throughout. We're working with Dr. Chavez on finding the right equity framework that's going to be a good fit for the Mount Angel School District. And we want to expand our parent focus group listening sessions to include many diverse populations. Maybe parents of students with physical disabilities or learning disabilities, families who are experiencing houselessness. There are lots of different listening session groups that we could and should be doing to gain more information and look at what we could be doing differently to make sure all of our students are succeeding. And require training and professional learning for all of our staff. So I'm finishing this portion of my report tonight with, from policy JBB, the last portion of the policy. The superintendent shall develop an action plan and include equity practices in the district's strategic plan strategies to implement this policy. The superintendent will annually report to the board the progress of the action plan. And I would just refine that by saying you'll get that report more than annually. Very important work needs to happen here. What questions can I answer for you? Questions? Okay.
I'm gonna remind those in the virtual and physical audience that if you want to address the board, now is the time to sign up. You can do that if you are listening and watching over Zoom using the chat function. Let our host know that you want to address the board. And if you're here in person, you can sign up. Sign-in sheet is over yonder. So any board member reports before we move on to that section of the agenda? All right. So we are at the public forum portion of the meeting, and I would look to Jill. Do we have anybody signed up? Right. Last call. There's still time. Okay, gonna move on. Action items. So we have 3, and one, and what is nice is that the language for the motion, if we agree and want to approve it, is on our blue sheet and also in our packet. So first action item is dairy RFP extension for 2022-23. And Rachel, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but do you have any explanation for this one?
This is just a rollover from what happened last fall. We renew every year for the next 4 years. So there's nothing new in this other than just approving again if you would consider approval.
And I have to abstain because my daughter works for Spring Valley. So.
So does anybody want to make a motion? We have the language.
I recommend the district extend the RFP D 2020-2025 to Spring Valley for the 2022-2023 school year.
I second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Nobody opposed and 1 abstention. All right, motion passes 3-0. Well, 3-0-1. Yeah. Right, and then the next one is the OCNC Broadline Distributor RFP for 2022-23. So this is Oregon Child Nutrition Coalition Broadline Distributor, and its RFP is request for proposal award. So, and we do have the backup materials in our packet. Somebody wants to read the motion if you agree?
I recommend the district award the 2022-2023 food and supply RFP number 2023-1 to Cisco Portland. I recommend the acceptance of products added to the buying list as approved through each of the subsequent RFPs. I also recommend the award be extended for each of the next 4 school years based on the increase in product prices being at or below the Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI inflation calculator of the previous school year.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Right, passes unanimously. Moving on to 8.3 strategic plan for 2022 through 2027. Rachel.
I am thrilled to be presenting this for consideration tonight. This has been at least 8 months in the making. And this is not the entire strategic plan. There will be a whole big narrative that goes with this, along with goals that are established that goes with this, that will be accessible to the public. But this is the start of it. This is the meat of what we believe. This is the meat of all of the input that community stakeholders provided to us. Hundreds and hundreds of comments that were looked at and grouped into like needs, wants, concerns, and interests. So I'm going to share it with you. It's a little easier on the eyes here because the colors are not quite as vibrant. For some reason, when we print it, it's incredibly powerful and bright to look at. But I wanted to take you through a couple of things. Starting with the fact that we have 4 priority areas up in the top right corner. Priority 1 is academic excellence. Priority 2 are thriving students. Priority 3, engaging family and community partnerships. And priority 4, safe schools and departments. Those priorities came pretty quickly and pretty easily once we sorted and sifted through all of the survey results. Those were definitely where people had a lot to say. Before I move on to vision and mission over on the left side, does anyone have any questions about those 4 priorities, or should I wait to see what the collective commitments are?
I just have a
those?
quick question.
Sure.
that I see. So in the priority 4 says safe and welcoming schools and departments, and then it says safe schools and departments. Is welcoming gonna stay? or
Welcoming is
that-
not going to stay
Okay.
there. That had to be eliminated because that was welcoming was part of engaging in family and community partnerships.
So
really,
redundant.
yeah.
Okay. Or
Thank you.
repetitive or whatever. So, okay. Thank you. That's my question.
Other? No? Okay. Well, maybe what just to be cohesive here, I think what I'll do rather than go to the left under mission and vision, I think what I'll do is just go down to those 4 priority areas and talk about the collective commitments that we are promising, we are guaranteeing that we're going to be working on these things and setting goals and progress monitoring them. So under academic excellence, we're going to offer a wide variety of K-12 educational pathways for all students, use highly effective practices by maintaining professional learning communities, providing support to staff, regularly monitor for progress, adjusting programs, systems, and instruction in response to each student's needs, and implement and sustain a high-quality multi-tiered system of support for each student. Under thriving students, this is all about health and wellness for our students. Our commitments are to continually evaluate and improve a tiered system of support to meet the social and emotional needs of our students. establish, strengthen, and sustain a leadership team, which we are calling in our school district a guiding coalition at each school that will not only look at academics, but will be looking at the social and emotional needs at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 for our students. Promote each student's emotional and social growth through connection and service to and within the community. That was a very strong request that came from stakeholders. Create and expand activities based on the expressed interests of the students. In other words, we're not going to read the minds of students. We're going to ask them what it is that they want in terms of clubs and activities that are taking place. So that was a big one that I heard from the student focus groups that I went to last year. Having engaging family and community partnerships, we will ensure that schools and departments are welcoming, friendly, and supportive spaces. Increase and enhance events that draw families into our schools, promoting and celebrating all cultures and backgrounds. Ensure transparent communication in each family's home language. And streamline communication systems for all schools, students, families, and the community. The fourth priority area, safe schools and departments, we will complete facilities and safety assessments reports, updating stakeholders regularly. Increase school district facility use by consistently communicating availability, and align our practices and decisions with the school district long-range facilities plan. The last area, although it wasn't part of stakeholder feedback specifically, is a really important priority area for the district. And that is under operational foundations, being able to manage and align our resources responsibly to best serve our students, families, staff, and community. So those are priority areas that we will be having quite a few measurable goals, attainable goals for the next 5 years. And I'm curious to know what questions you might have about those 4 priority areas. It's a lot. No?
So those priorities were the result of all of the stakeholder meetings and
Yes, sir.
it all boiled down.
That's what it
Okay.
boiled down to. Yes. All right. Well, I'm going to direct you to a couple of things on the left side, starting actually at the bottom. The whole student was something we were very interested in focusing in on, because we're not just looking at achievement through the lens of academics. We want social, emotional growth, well-being, feeling good about school, community. And that really drove our mission and our vision statement. So our mission, in terms of talking about what is our purpose? Why do we exist? What's this work all about? Our work, our purpose is to ensure student pathways of growth and achievement for all students through responsive adult actions. And it's no surprise that response and responsiveness are woven throughout this. That's one of the things that we can definitely improve on and strengthen, is how we respond when students need our assistance. So in order for us to meet that, what is it that we need to be? And that's what the vision is. That's how a vision is different from a mission. What is it that we need to be? Well, we need to be a trustworthy district that values academic access, prioritizes responsive supports, and nurtures resilient and independent thinkers who grow to know their own worth. That's what we need to be in order to really meet what our purpose is. So this is the 1-page mini strategic plan for your consideration tonight. What questions might you have?
When will we, what's the timeline for like seeing the specific goals of how we're gonna measure these?
So I am meeting with the administrators tomorrow and we'll be picking some dates to work on that throughout the rest of this month and into early September. And then as a board, that's a discussion item for later on tonight. How would you like to approach that work and the timeline for that? But we need to get going on this because this is going to drive some of the SIP or continuous improvement plan work.
Personally, I think it's impressive. I love all the different areas that it hits on. I appreciate all the hard work that went into it.
A lot of people worked on this.
I was struck in vision, there's a lot of the mouthful. Doesn't easily roll off the tongue. So I'm
No.
wondering about, and this is, I'm not saying we need to do this, but a tagline for students and staff to know right away, who are we? You know, what is it? And I don't think they're going to be able to recite the vision or the mission, but something that kind of, you know, quickly, who are we as a district, like a simple statement. And that'll come with time.
Yeah. And that's not uncommon for a vision statement to be quite a bit more flowery
Yes.
than a mission statement. It took me a couple of practices to get the mission statement down, but I've got it. It's good feedback.
So we'll see the bigger piece of this.
Yeah. There's a lot of work left to do.
Well, and this is the blueprint for moving forward for the next 5 years.
The framework.
Yeah, excellent work. It's not a very big word, but I think yeah. a lot of
Many
work
hands
went
make
into
light
this.
work. I was very pleased to have so much participation, thoughtful contributions from both board and from community members, staff, parents. It's been a great process thus far.
Any other comments or questions for Rachel?
Excited to see the rest as it comes along.
Somebody want to make a motion?
What do we?
It's on the back. Is it the
I
blue
move to
page?
approve the Huntington School District Strategic Plan 2022 through 2027.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Okay, that segues well into board work sessions. And I also want to mention that the CIPs, the strategic plan, they will directly affect moving forward once we get those kind of more figured out. What we hear from administrators during our meetings, they'll be aligned, I'm guessing over time. So that'll be nice for that kind of expectation of what we hear from the administrators to support the big stuff, the SIP and the strategic. That'll be good. And that means we as a board probably need to have a pretty good understanding of what it is of each of these documents, as well as response to intervention, the RTI framework that the school district is embracing. So Rachel and I, when we were planning our agenda, thought, let's talk about some board work sessions. And we want to just have a pretty candid discussion about what you guys think about the expectation moving forward that we will likely have a board work session every month. And some months, maybe not. And maybe we could calendar a work session 2 months in advance, just so we have it on our calendar. And then if we don't need it, we don't need it. And some areas that I'm thinking we need to have work sessions for, and work sessions really are for us to be able to meet and go more deeply into certain topics to either gain better understanding. We don't make any decisions at work sessions. They're just really for us to discuss and learn more about what it is and where we're thinking we want to go. We only make decisions during meetings like this, or special meetings. But like I said, the SIP, the strategic plan, maybe we want to go deeper on RTI, response to intervention, learning more about bonds and what that work is going to entail if we decide to ask for more money, and professional development for the board as a group or team building, and establishing board goals. At some point, we need to figure out what our goals are going to be that are layered above kind of bigger picture and align with, hopefully, I mean, we could go crazy and have something that doesn't align with the strategic plan and the SIPs. So all of that work is important work. And so what are your reactions to planning some board session or board work sessions?
I like the thought of planning some, putting some on calendars, because I think in the coming months, Rachel's going to be giving us a lot of stuff that we're gonna have to like look at, sit on, and ask questions about for long periods of time, like in a meeting. So I appreciate the fact that we are looking at some work sessions to do that. It's beneficial.
And the thought of maybe, like I said, maybe scheduling them a couple months out, because we don't know we don't know sports schedules. We don't know when we're going on vacation in March of 2023 yet. So, but kind of slow and steady. And Andy and Teresa, do you have any reaction to that? Yeah. Do we want to plan one in August? Tackle one of these issues we mentioned. September might be.
Will you have enough to give us in August to have and kind of a more in-depth discussion about one of those topics?
One thing that I could offer this month would be the continuous improvement plan template and components, so that you have a better sense of the goals that are going to be made. You won't have the SIPs to look at until October, but that's something that would be ready for you.
We kind of lay the
You share the
groundwork.
plan.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that's fine.
Do you want to do that for August? And what other topics do you see as, I mentioned quite a few big ones. Do you have other ideas for looking at the upcoming year of possible topics for work sessions? And it will organically come up throughout the
I
year.
think it would be interesting that we're putting so much focus on our secondary math to maybe have an in-depth, maybe by January, we'll look at math. It's like, okay, we've gone through this process. What do we have? What kind of data have we gathered? What does it look like? What are we doing? Just to give us a better understanding of, the efforts that they're putting into it. Are we getting what we expect as the teachers, staff? So the other one probably would be to also go along with that, sort of as our equity push. What does that look like? What training are we giving our staff in terms of situational pieces, so that there's some consistency with response, and so we just have a place to ask questions and kind of see where we're at, and where we're continuing to go. Because I know that Rachel has spent all this excellent time with our sessions. I think as a board, we're kind of left out of that loop a little bit, somewhat purposely.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to at least have an understanding of what's happening and how that affects our CIP and our strategic plan. Without, again, making decisions.
Right. And I'm wondering if the board can benefit from a mini session of our own on what it is we're sharing with our staff and expectations of our staff, and allowing the board to learn at the same time and be in alignment. Yeah. other thoughts for work session?
Worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, so
more-
plenty of
I don't
work.
want more than one a month.
Yeah, well, we
Yeah.
might decide that some months we need more than one. And for now, I think planning on one a month, so planning an extra meeting every month, just getting our mind around that expectation.
It'd be nice to kind of see the RTI work at each of the 3 schools, like what is different this year at St. Mary's? Because of the RTI or scheduling or whatever, what are we seeing? What are some positives that we're seeing? Now we've implemented this, what are some positive? You know, we got secondary math, what are some positives in other areas potentially at middle school that we've seen at high school?
Yeah, or even just saying, what does it even look like in high school? Mr. Peterson give us some look at, this is what RTI looks at in high school, but we've never done. So what does that look like? How is that different than from middle and elementary where it's done a little more, especially elementary?
It was a little easier to do within the
Sure.
interventions coming in and your self-contained classes.
Yeah, but you know, what does that look like? And what are the differences between buildings? Might be
Yeah. that
a
would be
good place to
interesting.
start. Cause I know Dale says he's excited, but what does that actually mean in terms of what will that look like with staff and their PLCs and determining those things, so.
Of the 8 teachers that still need to be trained in the RTI work process, 7 of them are from the high school. So they're going to have they have a lot to grapple with this fall in terms of still understanding some of the concepts. My recommendation to you would be to wait until later in the year for that reason for RTI.
Yeah, my thought on RTI for that update on what's happening in the buildings and.
agree.
Or spring,
Yeah, yes.
Early spring.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
February.
yeah, not
Yeah.
right.
Exactly, yeah, it would be, but it'd
Yeah,
be nice to learn
but that-
later on
but-
how that all
yeah.
is.
Yeah, I like
Here's some
that.
positives that we saw in the first semester
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like that.
or trimester.
So do we want to schedule our August one work session?
Sure, let's do that. Jill, ready?
And
So-
Monday through Thursdays are best. We want to avoid weekends, right? I'm guessing.
And then are there any potential staffing things for staff during like the last couple of weeks that would preclude any particular days that would be harder than others?
Not. Andy had something.
I would request not Tuesdays or Thursday evenings.
Okay.
That's our mother-daughter dance practice.
Oh, boy, that's so.
For all that. Mondays or Wednesdays work better.
I'm okay with days and Wednesdays.
What about Wednesday, the 24th of August?
Sure.
Yes.
Sounds
Yes.
good.
Okay.
What time? 6
um,
o'clock?
Can we do
6:30?
Okay. And the foundations of CIPs.
Yep. And I promise to never go more than 90 minutes, trying for an hour. How does that
Yeah,
sound?
that sounds great.
Okay.
And do we want to try to schedule September as well, or do that maybe at our August?
September. I would prefer to at least put it on the calendar if we have to like move it.
And I'm gonna be gone the whole last week of September.
So the week of the 26th?
Yes.
What about, do we want to switch up Monday and Wednesday? Does it matter to people? Well, and Oktoberfest is going to be over. so you're
As soon as Oktoberfest is done,
So when are you gone, Teresa?
The last week, the
Last
week of the
week.
26th.
about the week of the 19th.
What about Tuesday, the 20th? Does that?
Yep.
Work for people?
Yeah.
And
Same
should
time?
we just keep it at 6:30?
Yep.
Yeah, and the topic for that one, we can decide, but do you have anything that you know?
I was just thinking that one of the things that I shared with Chair Reedman was that I have not led board goal setting through a strategic planning process, and that I would be reaching out to OSBA for assistance on that. What I'm wondering is that more than a work session?
No.
I don't know, because I've not been involved in that.
I have a feeling, and this is, maybe I'm wrong. I have a feeling our board goals are gonna form quite quickly. And considering what we know and the work that's already being done in the district and things. So I think a work session, and it could be that we plan on a little bit longer than the hour or 90 minutes, maybe might go as long as 2 hours, but is that good timing to work on our board goals in September? It seems like it's.
I believe it is.
And so we could have an OSBA facilitator come and facilitate that if they're available. Does that sound good? So September would be for goal setting.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
The last year.
You know, I think we suspended did we?
We did board goals
We,
with
yeah,
the
we did.
OSBA.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, with the. Yeah, been here for so long. I'm trying to remember how that was last time. Yeah.
I feel like we did them at the same time, but Rachel's talking about her goals.
Oh, yeah. We did that.
Yeah, it was all-
Yeah.
We kind of, I mean, there's like two different work sessions.
Yeah,
I think we came to two different.
Right. Yes, right. Good memory. Right, so is that good for now?
Yeah.
That's good. I'll just plant a seed for you. A good topic for either October or November would be the presentation of the SIPs by the administrators, and I'm asking them to bring team members with them. So yes, oh, nice. Oh,
So if we have our work session like last week in October, they would be ready, because it should be done by then.
It should be.
Okay. Okay.
And if they're not ready in October for presentation, like if they're burning the midnight oil to get it done the last day of October, it might have to shift to November for you as a work session, but either month would be a good time, I think.
Right. Any other discussion on the work sessions? Good, thank you. Yeah, so we'll just assume we're gonna have a work session a month and maybe two and maybe none. Just looking at what's going on. So thank you. And then the last agenda item is professional learning for the board. And Rachel, do you wanna lead this? You want me to lead this? So really this is there specific professional learning that you think we should do as a board? These work sessions are actually going to be part of that.
That's what
We're
I
gonna,
was thinking.
yeah. So is there anything in addition to what we've talked about that we are interested in learning together as a board? And we can always come up with something.
I don't have one.
I would remind us that OSBA has great content for board members on appropriateness and what our role is versus what Rachel's role is versus what a teacher's role is, all that good stuff. So we have on-demand access to that type of stuff, reminders for, what we're supposed to do. Well, as elected officials, we can do whatever we want, but yeah, so there's always that. And I think being mindful and intentional and planning ahead for our work sessions, that can be our main professional development as a board. More, and I like it because it's focused on our school district that way. It's unique to our school district that's going on here. Do you have any ideas for learning that the board should be doing? No.
I'm sitting here and I'm.
Yeah, and remember that when we talk about work session, if there's an opportunity for a work session that would directly involve students and you come up with something that you think the board needs to be more in the know about and go deep on, we're open to hearing from you about that. Once it'll be easier once the school year started.
I'm assuming you want me to participate in the extra board.
Yes,
meetings.
if you're available, don't
I
feel
will-
like you have
I
to,
will make
but
time.
you're welcome to join us. Yeah.
Do you possibly have any idea of what I will be
specifically doing during the school year as the student representative?
That is good.
I think it depends on, as the school year goes, right, or build our agendas, if we need specific input, to pick up, we'll reach out to you beforehand. That way, Sherry's building the agenda. Can reach out to me and I can contact you, or she can contact you directly to give you, time to get some feedback from the student body. Or if there's anything that we're talking about that you feel like, hey, I really think they should know this from my community, feel free to speak up.
And with the student representative, it's for the district as a whole. Is there a point in time I'm needing to go down to the elementary and the middle school and talk to kids? Do I need to send out an email to all of them? Do I need to talk to specifically with students or just teachers?
I think it's more of a high school
But I
representative.
wonder if there would ever be a once in a while opportunity for Taylor to be a part of like the middle school's leadership council.
Yeah.
To sit in on theirs.
Right, well, as they're developing into high school, I feel like that they need to understand that there is somebody who they can talk to if they have concerns
Exactly.
currently or going into high school.
Absolutely.
So I wonder if we can talk to Mr. Taylor, if that's an opportunity for.
Mrs. Arndt is the leadership person, the one that does all the leadership stuff. She even, I think when they have their advisory, she is with her leadership team.
So leadership takes place during the school day. It's not.
I think it's like once.
Well,
a
the
week.
meetings and planning of things, that sort of stuff, yeah. So that's during the advisory, and I think the middle school schedule is real similar to the high school in that.
I think so.
Because of what they share, so. If it's at the same time that you have your advisory, it might be a time that you might be able to arrange to go down
Right,
to the
and
middle school.
and if Mrs. Aren't like just takes
Maybe.
notes or anything, I
Yeah,
can make
something
time
that's like
after
what's
school
wrong.
to go and like
Yeah.
talk with her.
And you
if I
could
need to,
probably
yeah.
email her through the school email
Right,
address.
or
Yeah.
talk to whatever classroom I have at the moment, and if that's something I need to attend.
There you
Make
go.
time.
I really, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I would, it would be pretty cool for the middle school students to learn more about who you are and what your role is, so they do know that you can be their voice.
Right.
At this table, and I think that's a wonderful idea. And
Yeah, 1 to 2 times a month, really is all you.
I like it. Any other questions, Taylor, about what it is we expect?
No, I figured probably sit in during like the student leadership meetings, listen to what they have to say, just general gist. I don't know if like maybe Mr. Peterson's gonna have me like, when we do like our school assembly, like say like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do.
That's a
Yeah,
good.
you should, yeah.
You should,
So
yeah, that's a good
it's,
idea.
they recognize who I am and.
Yeah.
I could reach out to him.
I had a clarifying question about that too. So during the school year, we typically have JFK leadership in the presentation area. Is that now Taylor's responsibility?
I
to
don't-
share?
I don't, I think
No.
I think that
Right.
still comes, yeah.
Okay, so leadership will stay in the presentation.
Taylor's part of our board,
Yeah,
Okay,
leadership.
but I could reach out to Mr. Peterson about, that welcome back, make sure to include you. Yeah, and then to make sure too that she's a part of that leadership team too, as well. It sits in there on those leadership. Yeah,
Yeah, loop in on what's going on with that. So,
yeah.
good tactic as well. I like it. Okay. Anything else that anybody wants to make a comment on or say before we go ahead and meeting is adjourned?